Hello and welcome to Psych. My name's Luke and I work in mental health, and I have done for a number of years now. And basically I want this channel to be a kind of reaction channel to movies and the way that they portray mental health in the media. So this is my first video, so let's see how it goes. Today I will be reacting to Joker from the position of a mental health professional. Without further ado, let's get going.
The news never ends. This is 1080 GCR. You get all the news you need all day long.
I've seen this film before.
42 degrees at 10:30 on this Thursday, October 15th. I'm Stan L. Brooks, and here's what's happening. The latest increase in heating oil prices.
So I guess immediately on the off, you get a sense of the Joker's kind of mental state, which is amazing work by Joaquin Phoenix. You really see that kind of like vulnerability, and you see that sense of like distress within himself, which is characteristic of a lot of people with mental illness. So I think that this opening scene is a very good way of portraying that to the audience, that he has this kind of like this inner turmoil.
Take a stop. Let's go. Come on. Let's go.
So I guess this scene does a really good job of demonstrating that people with mental illness are vulnerable, and I know that like he stands out quite a bit because of his clown outfit, but I could see that as kind of a metaphor for you know people who are mentally ill being picked on in society and being you know, singled out and abused by passers-by just for being different. This isn't an unusual situation. It might be a bit extreme compared to the norm, but it's definitely not unusual.
Asked you to bring your journal for these appointments. Can I see it?
Just going back to Joker's laugh, which is a big factor within this movie, the inappropriate laughing, that's an actual illness. That is a diagnosable condition called pseudobulbar affect, and it is characterized by people laughing or crying in inappropriate situations. And it can be the result of a brain injury, so that's completely accurate. That kind of like inappropriate laughing is a real condition that people have to endure.
I've been using it as a journal, but also as a joke diary. Funny thoughts or observations. I think I told you I'm pursuing a career in stand-up comedy.
No.
This diary, it's I mean, to look at it's unsettling, but it looks like somebody who with psychosis or some traumatic memories would create. The fact that she's surprised by that is surprising because, you know, it's not uncharacteristic of people with these illnesses to create diaries or journals that don't make much sense to us and look like they're scribbles and or like dark themes within them because of the amount of trauma they've been through. So that's, you know, she looks concerned when I think that she probably would have seen this more often than is let on in this film.
You didn't.
I think I did.
I just hope my death makes more sense than my life. does it feel to have to come here? Does it help to have someone to talk to?
I think I felt better when I was locked up in the hospital.
That is not an uncommon thought among people who have mental illness. You know, they feel a sense of security. They might feel that they're around people that are going through similar struggles or who have been through similar struggles, and they're getting the medication that helps relieve the symptoms. So yeah, that's not anything surprising.
No.
And what they just showed was what in the UK we have segregation rooms, which are low stimulus rooms for people who are being either aggressive and violent or at a serious risk of self-harm. They are still used. I don't know why it said observation room on the inside of the room. That wouldn't help anybody. I think obviously, you know, they wanted you to know where he was, I guess. So yeah, and the observation side of it, you know, if somebody is showing really high signs that they'll either self-harm or something like that, then they need to be observed more. So that's probably a fitting name for it.
I was wondering if you could ask the doctor to increase my medication.
Again, this is not an unusual request for somebody with mental illness to make, because there's a lot of pain that they feel. There's a lot of things that they have been through, usually, which will make them want to you know, get rid of it all. And medication can help with that. Sometimes it can soften that. It can flatten those emotions, and it can make you forget those memories and make you feel better, I guess. But it's not a cure, and it never gets rid of the issue. So
Arthur, you're on 7 different medications. Surely they must be doing something.
Hi, Murray. Arthur.
Arthur?
My name's Arthur.
Oh, okay. Well, there's something special about you, Arthur, I could tell. Where you from?
I live right here in the city with my mother.
So here comes my first kind of issue with the film. And it's an ongoing issue that I've seen in many other films, but that is the development of a kind of a mentally ill villain as being somebody who has an bordering inappropriate relationship with their mum. I think, you know, it dates back as far as Psycho by Hitchcock, which you know, I'll probably do in another video. But I think it's really unhelpful for the kind of the perception of mentally ill people to constantly state that they're the kind of people who have these kind of strange relationships with their mothers, which usually isn't the case. You know, there's plenty of mentally ill people who don't have any kind of relationship with their mothers. There's people that have very normal relationships with their mums. In fact, the vast majority of people who are mentally ill have very regular relationships with their mums. And it's this sort of weird kind of like they've thrown an Oedipus kind of vibe into the movie in order to estrange him from the rest of society, and that, you know, he becomes more of a childish figure, and it's something that I don't appreciate. I think if you're gonna portray mental illness, then make it accurate and make it representational. Again, and especially with villains, and you know, there's going to be people who have these kind of overburdening relationships with their parents that aren't going to become villains, and that's not what is expressed through movies.
Hold on, there's nothing funny about that. I lived with my mother before I made it. Just me and her. I'm that kid whose father went out for a pack of cigarettes, and he never came back.
And so, you know, in Arthur's imagination, he makes it relatable to Murray, who is the guy that he really adores and admires. So, you know, in his imagination, he's saying he does the same thing.
All that stuff, I'd give it all up in a heartbeat to have a kid like you.
So there we come. There we come to the father figure, the missing father. So that you have the inappropriate relationship with the mother, or the too involved relationship with the mother, and then the missing father. So those are tropes throughout films that portray mental illness that just don't seem to go away.
Yes, we can hear you, Gigi.
It's so awful, Mom. Right, Mommy?
Again, this is something that happens quite a bit, where somebody meets someone, they've been ostracized most of their life, if they've had like a severe mental illness. They meet someone who's nice to them, and they immediately form a bond with that person because they're not used to that person they're not used to people being nice to them. So they take any kind of like little small talk or conversation as infatuation and read those signals badly. Which is what happens here. He thinks she's flirting with him when, you know, she's just talking about how awful the building is. You know, so yeah.
So awesome, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
And we see her disinterest there. You know, she sees him respond to her thing in the lift, and we see her give a small smile and then continue on with her day. So we just see this joke. The worst part about having a mental illness is people expect you to behave as if you don't. And he wrote the first part with his right hand, and then wrote the second part with his left hand. So I guess that's a metaphorical thing that the filmmakers were trying to put in there. That joke is very true. It's a very true and entrenched belief within our society, is that if you have a mental illness, you know, you have to behave as if you don't, otherwise you get stared at, you get made fun of, you get excluded from things. So I think that's an accurate observation that he's had. You know, people expect him to act like everyone else and not be able to express his mental illness. So yeah.
I have a gun. I'll come by tomorrow.
So funny, aren't they?
So again, this is you know, she I think understands that he is mentally unstable, that he's not neurotypical, and she accepts that, and you know, she interacts with him like he's a normal person, and the jokes that he makes might be a little dark, but they're jokes. He might not see it in the same way, and this is just developing his infatuation because no one's ever responded to him in this way.
Yeah. You know, I do stand-up comedy. You should maybe come see a show sometime.
I could do that. Yeah. You let me know when?
And we see again her disinterest, like, you know, just very passiveness, very kind, very not flirtatious. I don't think that was a flirtatious interaction from her side. So but he's perceiving it in very much like a flirtatious way, and you can see it by his expression at the end when he kind of, you know, is trying to act cool.
Where are the clouds? There ought to be a cloud.
So the start of this scene does a really good job of showing how mentally ill people are vulnerable in society, and how they're more prone to being attacked and threatened and stuff like that than kind of your average person, because they're in a situation where either they're detached from reality and they don't really know what's going on, or they present unusual behaviours that draw attention. So the first part of the scene does a really good job of showing that. The types of movements that he's doing in this shot, I have seen people do that who are kind of going through psychosis and are kind of experiencing their own world almost. Not the exact same movements, but like, you know, similar kind of thing. So it's something I would expect. And I guess if he is someone who has psychosis, which I think is demonstrated throughout the rest of the film, the stress that he was under in that situation on the train would definitely kind of evoke the psychosis to come out, and even with the medication, you know, he'd be under a great lot of stress, and so in my opinion, what he's experiencing now is a psychotic episode in this bathroom. And here's your evidence that he is experiencing a psychotic episode. Perhaps he's still in the bathroom. Perhaps that is what the psychosis is triggering, this delusion, or hallucination, that he's gone to the flat to kiss his neighbour. But we find out later that none of this happened, and it was in his mind the whole time. So yeah, so I think the stress from that situation triggered his psychosis.
We're starting to notice.
They've cut our funding. We're closing down our offices next week.
This is unfortunately a real concern amongst mental health services. You know, in the UK there's loads of wards closing at the moment because of the cuts to the NHS. There's not as many beds. They're transferring care into the community, which has its positives, but those services are stretched massively. Social work has the same kind of issues as well. You know, social workers are stretched between, you know, sometimes 60 to 70 people that they have to see every week, which is impossible. So this is a big deal, and this is a true representation of the way that mental health services and social work services work in real life.
The city's cut funding across the board. Social services is part of that. This is the last time we'll be meeting.
I don't think that conversation would be had within that time frame. I mean, I'm not sure if in the 80s that was something that happened, but certainly now there'd be more notice if there was funding cuts, and you know, people would be transferred to different services if need be. A week seems a little bit short notice, but perhaps they needed that as a plot device to push the story forwards and give him another reason to fall.
Okay.
You know, I was just thinking the other day, why are the rich people so...
And this music this music and the clapping, it's like canned laughter. It's very much in his head. It's he's having a psychotic delusion. Now, I think the word psychotic has been claimed by the movie industry for long enough. We need to take that word back a little bit. We need to show that psychotic does not mean psychopathic, and certainly doesn't mean that they're cold blooded and they're a killer and they're like a murderer anyway, because you normally associate psychotic with psychotic serial killer. So psychosis is being detached from reality. That's the very basics of it, and that can be through having delusions about who you are or how important you are, how good you are at something. It could be to do with having hallucinations, such as anything to do with the senses, so seeing things, smelling things, hearing things. So yeah, that's the basics of it. So right now he's having a delusion that he's getting laughs and stuff, and that's probably happening as well as a auditory hallucination, and in his head he's seeing her laughing at his jokes. Extremely bizarre behaviour, physical abuse. Yeah, I don't think you'd describe somebody with a mental illness as having extremely bizarre behaviour. I don't know if that was like technical terminology in the 1980s, but certainly now that's so nondescript, like that could mean anything. So you describe what the behaviour is. It might be that they make inappropriate comments, or they are responding to unseen or unheard stimulus, or they are pacing a lot, or that they're having hallucinations. That stuff that we think of as bizarre behaviour, we would describe it as what it is, not just as a nondescript, extremely bizarre behaviour.
Oh my God. What are you doing in here?
This is where we find out that his entire relationship with his neighbour is a delusion and a hallucination. You can tell by her shock. She wouldn't be that shocked if somebody she thought could be in there, or someone she had an intimate relationship with was present. And we'll see she doesn't even really know him. Like, she knows his name and oh, you're the man down the hall, that kind of thing.
You're in the wrong apartment.
He's having a full-on psychotic episode here. I think just like the scene in the bathroom, I believe that was like a psychotic episode that he was having. I think this is very similar, but he's having a lot more kind of the what we call the negative symptoms, where he's very slouched over. He's almost looking like he's depressed, and those are the negative symptoms of psychosis, and the more positive ones are the hallucinations and the delusions and stuff. Positive meaning not like they're good, but they're like stimulating, whereas the negative symptoms are like destimulating.
Can I call someone? Is your mother home?
See, she wasn't even at the door when she was saying about going to the comedy club. That was a hallucination as well. So literally the only real interaction he had with her was in the lift.
Okay. Knock. Knock, knock.
So we're starting to see he's developed kind of suicidal ideation, and he's planning on doing this in a kind of a very public way. this is an issue that kind of like affects men in this age category quite a lot. When you know, a lot of things haven't gone the way that they planned to, and they might have lost a lot in their life. Maybe they've been made redundant, a lot, become divorced, you know, not been as successful as they had expected or hoped, or there's lots of reasons for it. And it is this age category that Joaquin Phoenix is portraying that are at the most risk. It tends to be quite a private thing, so this kind of public display of what he's planning is unusual. So I think his version of it is that he wants to become notorious. He wants to be someone that some people are talking about before, and not be a nobody, and that's where he's coming from it. But yeah, it's very sad.
My life is nothing but a comedy.
Well, let me get this straight. You think that killing those guys is funny?
I do. And I'm tired of pretending it's not. Comedy is subjective, Murray.
Yeah, so this is another kind of issue I have with this movie, is that he's killed 3 people, and they're showing him as being like remorseless and lacking empathy, which is traditional traits of a psychopath, which you tend not to see in people who are psychotic. And I guess part of that is that he has nothing left to lose, and that, you know, they were being nasty to him, and there's no one that's been nice to him throughout his life. But it kind of presents people with mental illness, especially psychosis, as uncaring and unforgiving and unremorseful, which is not the case. You know, people who might make mistakes when they're in a psychotic state tend to feel a lot of remorse for it, especially if it's something that they remember doing.
What they say? All of you.
You're like trash! Call the police,
I'll
Gene.
tell you what you get!
Call the police.
You get what you fucking deserve!
Yeah, so, I mean, this is, I guess, an analogy, but it's not something that works for me. I think, you know, what you get when you have a mentally ill loner that mixed with a society that doesn't care about him, you get somebody who becomes even more mentally ill and unstable, and they fall off the radar, and they don't become violent. So, you know, this is spreading the wrong message entirely. I guess an origin story for a Batman villain, but you know, movie makers have a responsibility when they're developing films to make sure they're not alienating anyone, and I feel like this representation of mental illness kind of does alienate people. The wall says no unsupervised patients allowed, and she is there unsupervised in a room and with a serial killer. So it's implied that he kills her as well. So that was the Joker. So I guess I'm gonna rate it on 3 different things. So the first thing is overall movie quality, and I think the cinematography is incredible in this movie, and it does a really good job of portraying how he's feeling at certain times with the way that they've shot it and lit it, and everything about that is amazing. The actual story, I think, is a bit cliche. I think it's a bit far-fetched, and I guess that is from the comic book roots, maybe, and they had to think of ways that people would relate to in terms of him becoming a villain. I think that I'll probably give it a 3.5 out of 5 for the general movie quality. It was an enjoyable movie, but I think I have issues with it elsewhere that make me not like it as much as I could. The second thing is accuracy to mental health, and I think that this has some points where it's extremely accurate and then some points where it's absolutely not accurate at all. So I'm going to give that a 3 out of 5 for overall accuracy, mental health. I think the way that they did the delusions and the hallucinations was very well done, but the way that they did how that escalated into him becoming violent was very unnecessary. And so the final thing I'm rating it on is how much it promotes what it does for the stigma of mental health. So if I give it a 5, then I think it does a really good job in helping the stigma of mental health, and if I give it like a 1, then it has done a really poor job of it, and I think I'm going to give this a 2, because I think that this again portrays mentally ill people as violent and aggressive people who have no remorse, which just isn't the case. And I think that the more movies you have like this in society, the more people are going to believe it. You know? So, yeah, those are my ratings. Sorry about the lighting issues that I've had. I didn't set up any lights, and I didn't realise it was going to get dark by the time I finished recording this, so the light changed throughout the video. That will be sorted in the next one, I guess. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. So that was me, a mental health professional, reacting to The Joker. See you later.